And I just want to mention, so I am, if it's okay, going to keep everyone on mute for the moment. We do have several families that have joined us at this point. So if everyone can stay on mute, I will plan to have some dedicated QA time towards the end of the session. So if you have any questions between now and then, just try to save those and we'll make sure that those are addressed for you. And we will hop in. All right. So again, starting with language and literacy, I want to just kind of kick off our session with Carmen, who you can see here. And I just want to give you all the opportunity to hear from the student point of view what language and literacy looks like for them. So Carmen is a kindergartner who has been using language and literacy. We'll start that.
Cheyenne, we can't hear.
Oh no, I apologize. Thank you so much for letting me know. Let's see if I can fix my audio really quickly. All right. I don't know if I'm going to be able to fix that actually. Can you still hear me though? Just want to confirm. Okay.
We can.
Okay.
It may be that unshare, and then when you share, click the option to share your audio.
So what it's asking me to do, and I don't want to have to do this since we're already on, it's asking me to stop the Zoom and restart before it will allow me to do that. So I apologize, but we'll go ahead. We'll skip the video. That's okay. Carmen is a sweetheart and definitely shares why she loves Imagine Learning, but that's okay. We will skip the video so that I don't have to restart. All right. So today we're going to kind of talk through the three main components of language and literacy. So what you'll see when your students use Imagine Language and Literacy is first, the focus is very much on individualized learning. So using the Galileo assessment, students have been placed in the program at the starting point for their grade level, and then their learning pathways are constantly adjusted. So they're going to get to evaluative checkpoints throughout the program and predictive checkpoints. So these are like pre-tests, these predictive checkpoints. So when a scholar is ready for a new concept in language and literacy, it's going to first give them that pre-assessment, and it's going to allow them to skip lessons if they show that they know the material. So keep in mind that language and literacy is constantly differentiating for your scholars based on those pre-assessments. And then the evaluative checkpoints are going to come in between lessons. And so what those are is those are where the program is going to look at the prior progress of the student and then give supplemental lessons as needed as well. So the program is constantly deciding, does this student have proficiency of a standard already? If so, let's skip that and move on to more challenging content. At the same time, is there an area where this student is struggling? And then what can we place upon the student's individualized learning pathway to make sure that they can gain mastery of that skill? And then the next key benefit of language and literacy is just the engagement and motivation piece. So the program is designed to be fun and motivating for your scholars. They, of course, have the robot mascot named Booster, and they get those booster bits in language and literacy. So as the families, you probably have heard about those booster bits, of course. And those are available to allow them to customize avatars. They can personalize their space in the Imagine Museum. And then they can access all kinds of other fun tools in that Imagine Museum area with those booster bits. And then lastly, it is designed to be used at home. So I know that we are obviously in a very difficult period right now for you all as families with the pandemic. I know it's very difficult to adjust to this at home learning, and I cannot imagine trying to balance all of that. But, language and literacy was designed to be able to be used at home. So, and we'll show you lots of different resources that are going to help you to implement this at home towards the end of this session. So keep that in mind. I want to talk a little bit more about this content delivery system. So it's really focused on making sure that your scholars have access to grade level content alongside any intervention that's needed. And it focuses on three kind of standards: comparing and contrasting literature, comparing and contrasting informational text, and then the text features of those texts. So in language and literacy, your scholar may be working on grade level subject matter, and then at the same time working on foundational skills in other areas. So it's designed to be very unique to your student. And even if they have a little gap in their learning in literature versus informational text, for instance, it's going to differentiate and give them that different subject matter content for those different standards. So it's not just saying, oh, this student has a first grade reading level, we're going to give them all first grade content. It's really differentiating based on those specific skill sets. And the program is going to add those extra lessons and skip lessons based on progress. And that is adaptive each and every day. So they're going to continue to get those sort of pre-assessments and then those evaluative checkpoints. And so what the program looks like one day may be very different than what the program looks like another day. And I know there's some feedback from parents, and when I sent out the pre-survey for Q&A, I noticed some parents or families asking questions about their scholars level, right? Is it something that can be adjusted by the school or the teacher if it is too challenging or not challenging enough? So keep in mind that the program is working very hard to do that. This has been designed by language and literacy experts. And the more time that your student spends in the program, it's going to continually adapt to them as well. So as you move throughout the school year, your scholars' learning pathway is going to become even more individualized to them. Now, we'll talk later a little bit, but do know that if something really is a struggle, if it is just far too challenging or not challenging enough for your scholar, we definitely can address that. So do let your child's teacher know, and then we can address that with them. But in general, it should adapt to the students. If that is not happening, please let your scholar's teacher know, and we can work with them to change that pathway. So I did want to show you a little bit about the booster bits, but this is also a video. So I'm actually going to just hop into and talk about the Imagine Museum. So students earn booster bits for all of their activities that they complete in language and literacy. And then once they earn 1,000 booster bits, that's when they have the opportunity to go to this Imagine Museum area. So this is where that motivation piece really comes in. In this place, they can build their avatars and play different games that are available, and it is a 90-second time limit. So the program is designed to allow your scholars to have this little moment of fun when they have earned it, but then get them right back into learning. And keep in mind, if students skip the opportunity to go to the Imagine Museum, then they do have to accrue another 1,000 booster bits before they have the opportunity again. So they can't just bank thousands and thousands of booster bits and then spend an hour, in Imagine Museum. If they skip that, they do have to earn those again. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about the different content that your students are encountering in language and literacy. So these are just 3 examples of the activities that students are going to see in the program. So Meet New Sounds is an example of how the program is strategically supporting students with their language. And what this is this is just focusing. So this is primarily for our younger scholars, focusing on their English sounds and helping students produce those sounds. And then listen up is for students to listen to what fluent speaking and reading sounds like. So, one thing that we really emphasize in language and literacy is modeling, giving your scholars the opportunity to see what that fluent reading sounds like. So, that's what they encounter in Listen Up. And then, what do you mean is a really fun activity that is focused on all of the different little quirks of English. So, this is where students are introduced to idioms and things like that that don't exactly mean what we might guess. So, all of those little quirks that we utilize that students aren't familiar with yet. And then some other activities that your scholars encounter in language and literacy. One is called mega mazels. So this is allowing students to blend sounds to start to decode words. So again, this is great for those beginning readers that are still at that decoding stage. Read and record is one of my favorite pieces of language and literacy. You may have noticed your students doing read and records at home. So this is going to allow students the opportunity to echo read again with a fluent reader. So modeling that fluent reading and then giving students the opportunity to do that echo reading. And then at the end, after they've done that echo reading, they read it all on their own and they record that for their teachers. So keep in mind that your scholars' teachers are able to listen to them read on a regular basis using language and literacy, which is especially great since we are doing this learning at home right now. It does give students the opportunity to show off for their teachers. And then the last one on this page is called Look and Think. And this is direct instruction on inference questions. So inferencing, this is more focusing on reading comprehension. So the program is meant to scaffold students up from that learning to read stage and start to teach them what reading to learn looks like. So as they read a text to learn more about a topic, what inferences can be made, what comprehension questions can they utilize as sort of metacognitive strategies to help them understand their reading. That's a constant focus throughout language and literacy. All right, and those were videos of those, but again, since we can't get sound right now, I would be happy though after the session, I'll make sure that you have access to those so that you can see examples of those different activities, but you may have encountered those at home as well as you've watched your scholars on the program. All right, and then a few more, I'll make sure you get those, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the usage recommendations. I know this has been a concern, especially with at-home learning, making sure that your scholars are meeting their usage recommendations. So it varies for our different grade levels. Of course, we know that scholars in higher grade levels can focus a little bit longer. But generally for our K through 2 students, which is what we have at Rise STEM Academy, we recommend about 20-minute sessions, and that's 3 to 5 times per week. So I'm sure you all have noticed the nice thing about language and literacy is that when a scholar has finished their 20-minute session, it is going to automatically end the session and log them out. So admittedly, it is a little bit easier to track that usage on language and literacy. Once a student has done their 3 sessions for the week, they have gotten their 60-minute goal. Okay, if they have completed all of those sessions, gotten to that end screen where it logs them out 3 times, then they've met their 60-minute goal for the week. So it's fairly easy to track in that way. I am going to provide you towards the end of the session, I'll show these and I'll also make sure that we get these to you along with the session recording, but some different resources to help you track this time. Keep in mind though, your students can log right back in once the session ends. So if they are really enjoying language and literacy that day, even though that 20-minute session has ended, they can log back in immediately after for another 20-minute session. So if you have a particularly easy day, which those are rare right now, but if you do and they want to try to get all 60 of their minutes in one day, that's totally fine. They can absolutely do that. And then I'm going to highlight this. We'll actually hop into this live again towards the end of the session. But this is a resource that our team has created for you. It's imaginelearning.com/at-home. And if you visit this, there are lots and lots of resources available here for you as families. So you're going to have access to information on both our language and literacy and math programs. And then there are also video resources and lesson resources for you. So there are printable activities, there are videos, there's a lot of information available here for you to support Imagine Learning at home. So please check this out when you do have a few moments, and I'll highlight it at the end. We'll hop in live so you can see what this looks like. But it is a really fabulous resource since at-home learning is what learning looks like right now. We've put together some extra things to help you out with that. And then I'll go ahead and open up for questions specifically for language and literacy. So we're about to hop into Imagine Math, but I do want to pause and see if there are any questions that are solely focused on language and literacy so that you have the opportunity to ask those before we move on to math. So if you are on Zoom, you should see towards the bottom of your screen a little red microphone. Please feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions at all about language and literacy.
Yes, I want to know, why don't we have access to be able to get the minutes?
Yeah, so this is kind of true for both math and language and literacy. And it's a difficult question because there's not a one specific reason that access doesn't exist. But keep in mind that, Imagine Learning was designed to be motivating and engaging for students. It's designed to kind of individualize their learning. And it's not really designed to be about minutes, right? It's about quality learning time. That's part of why the session ends automatically at 20 minutes for language and literacy, is because it's designed for that quality learning time. So we know that with learning at home, it is more important than ever for parents to have access to that. We completely understand that. Imagine Learning was not designed during or for this pandemic, and we know it's a lot tougher now to sort of support your students as they learn at home. So it's something that we are aware of, and we are working towards having that available for you. But again, right now that's just not available because it wasn't designed to be monitored in that way. Again, I'm going to show you kind of towards the end some resources to help you track those, but especially for language and literacy, just keep in mind that if they have done those 3 sessions, then they are great on their minutes. If they've done 4 sessions, you can automatically know that instead of 60 minutes, they now have 80 minutes. Right.
Okay,
so language
but
and
my thing
literacy, I know, is a
it's
little easier to track than math. Go ahead. I'm
right.
sorry.
I understand that it wasn't designed for that. I understand that, but that's not a real answer. If it's not designed for that, I know I'm not going to speak for any other parent, but for me and their dad, whether it was designed or not, we should have access. It's about our children. It has nothing to do with how y'all designed it. Most of y'all probably aren't even parents, so y'all wouldn't even understand where we're coming from. But if you're gonna design a program, make it accessible for parents too, because I'm not wanting to know the minutes because I just don't, I want to know them just for no apparent reason. I'm their mom. I want to be able to keep up with it. I shouldn't have to time it every time so I know how many minutes they have. I should just be able to access it. I don't think me or their dad is expecting anything out of the ordinary by asking this simple thing. You know what I'm saying? It's not about that. I know it's quality learning. I know they're getting quality learning. I'm not even talking about that. But I should be able to access information when it comes to my children. And that's the thing
Can
that you're not
I piggyback off
seeing.
of that real quick?
Yeah, go ahead, please, Kimberly.
So Cheyenne, how hard is it for the teachers to print reports more often? Can they like give access to the parents more often?
I don't really want to speak to what teachers
Well,
can
no, I meant I don't
do.
know. I don't know the process. So is it an easy
I'm
process?
not worried about that. I can ask the teachers myself, but I shouldn't have to interrupt the teachers. They have enough on their plate. They have enough to do. I mean, if you're going to design a system, it has nothing to do with the teachers. That shouldn't be their responsibility. But if somebody's going to design something, they should make it accessible for the parents. It's a very simple thing. It shouldn't have to involve the teachers. It shouldn't have to involve any of the staff. They have enough on their plate. You designed this so-called fancy system, you know what I'm saying? It should have a little part where us as parents can access it. It shouldn't be a
And
big conversation. It shouldn't be a big thing.
that's something we're working very hard on because we do know how important that is.
But if you really
Unfortunately, it doesn't do that now,
it
but
should
we
have
know
already
how
been there.
important that is for you.
Right, but it should have already been there. If you really
I
believe, if you honestly believe that this is important, that should have been part of it from the get-go. Period. Don't say it's important if it's not, because it's not important, because if it was, it would have already been designed like that.
I'm really sorry to hear how frustrated you are with it.
No, I'm not frustrated with that. I just don't appreciate how you're trying to say it's important, because if it really was, it would have been designed like that. So it's not I'm frustrated because of whatever you trying to make it. I don't like and I don't appreciate somebody trying to say we believe it's important, but you didn't have it set up like that to begin with. And you kept saying, well, it's not designed for us to know that. It's our children. We should have access to what they're doing at any time. That's the part of being a parent. It shouldn't be some hard situation. It shouldn't be we got to go to the teachers or we got to go to this person or that person. And then you want to try to down talk me and say, well, I'm sorry you're frustrated. No, I don't appreciate that. It has nothing to do with what you designed it for. You are doing this for the children. Obviously, parents are a part of that equation. If you don't see and recognize that parents are a part of students and wanting to keep up with things, then something is wrong with you.
Ms. Whitfield, we appreciate you sharing your input, and I know that Cheyenne was saying that they're working on it. So hopefully, we know that you feel it should have been there in place at the beginning. But I do want to make sure we don't run out of time to talk about the math portion
No,
and
that's fine.
to answer any other questions, and then we can come back to this if we have time.
Thank you, Ms. Green. All right. Yes, we can discuss that as much as we have time for. Again, I am very sorry for the frustrations. I'm going to hop into Imagine Math, and then we will continue to have that conversation as much as possible. All right. For Imagine Math, we just want to focus today on sort of what is it in general, the philosophy of Imagine Math and what it focuses on for your students, and talk through some key things to know, some things that you'll notice as your scholars are using Imagine Math, and then just a little bit of information on accessing it and how to support your students at home. So a couple of key points for pre-K through 2 is that it does have periodic embedded tests and quizzes similar to language and literacy. So, and it is designed to not appear as though it is a test. So actually what you're seeing here is one of those. So it does not look test-like, but it is something that is collecting data to personalize their pathway. And then they are going to get help when they need it. So help is automatically offered in Imagine Math Pre-K through 2. So if a student is continually choosing an answer that is incorrect, it's automatically going to pop up with interactive pieces, with videos to help them to learn that particular piece of content. And it is very audio intensive. So, we know that these students are using language and literacy to learn to read, but we don't want them to have to focus on that reading when they are having this math experience. So they are going to have many of the instructions read to them out loud. Almost everything is going to be read to the students in math pre-K through 2. And so it's designed to really focus on that math, to not let other areas sort of hinder that progress. And keep in mind that math pre-K through 2 is designed to help students to sort of understand math sense making, right? So this is not about necessarily memorizing algorithms or memorizing facts. We do have Imagine Math Facts, which is to help them get that fact fluency. But Imagine Math is really focused on those comprehension skills, understanding what the math means, and really setting them up for success later on when they do need to become fluent in algorithms. One thing I want to note is the log out screen for Imagine Math. So we do want to help you to track your students' progress in Imagine Math. So Imagine Math does not automatically log out like language and literacy does after that 20 minutes. So when a student is finished with Imagine Math, they're going to, and I'll show the video, you won't be able to hear it, but it still will show that experience, and I'll just kind of talk through what that looks like. But when they do log out of Imagine Math, they're going to start by clicking pause and then go to their map. They're going to click pause again and then click that X. So that's how they leave the program, and all progress is saved after that. So once they have clicked pause 2 times, they have left the program, and that's where their minutes are logged for that particular day. So keep that in mind. And then like language and literacy though, if they log out and choose to log back in 5 minutes later, that is totally fine. Another thing to know is both for tracking usage and motivation, students earn tokens in Imagine Math. So that's kind of the focus of, how students have done in the program. Every single activity and lesson, they have the opportunity to earn tokens. And if they have earned all of the tokens, then they pass the lesson. At the end of each lesson, they see a screen like this that shows them how many tokens they have earned, and they do have an opportunity to try again. So we really want to promote that growth mindset and give students the opportunity, if they do notice that they did not get all of their tokens, to try again. And they can do that in the Treasure Island section on the map. When they go there, they're going to have that opportunity to retry any lesson and earn those tokens. And then I know that Rise STEM Academy has done some things to help motivate your students, done some internal contests. We also have national contests that are sponsored by Imagine Math. So your school and your classrooms are automatically entered into these contests, and it gives them the opportunity to compete with other schools across the state and the country. So this is being constantly tracked. These are visible in the program. So if your students have really high usage, either at the class level or the school level, it is possible that they can win these national programs. They get national recognition for the school or the classroom or both. And there are prizes involved for the classroom as well. So keep that in mind, that these are available as well. And if usage is extremely high, then that can happen. I wanted to talk a little bit about the lesson tracker and just the goals for Imagine Math in terms of usage. So when we talk about Imagine Math, we are very much focused on the Think 30 goal. So the goal for your scholars is to have 30 lessons passed by the end of the school year. We definitely want to make sure that students are spending significant time in Imagine Math each day and each week. But really, what we want to track very carefully is how many lessons they have passed a week. And so that's even, of course, a little bit easier to track than time. So the goal is about 2 lessons per week, though, to get them on track to meet that yearly goal and have success. And that's based on, of course, research that shows that if students have 30 or more lessons passed in Imagine Math at the end of the year, they show significantly more growth. So I'm going to be sending this to you, but we do have an Imagine Math tracker that can help. So all students have to do is just kind of circle each time they pass a lesson, and you can even establish sort of a reward system at home to track that as well, along with all of the things that your school has done to help incentivize using Imagine Math and language and literacy. And then just keep in mind, we know that math especially can be difficult to work on at home. So make sure that your students have a quiet space to work, that they do have access to that scratch paper, and really encourage them to try their best and use that available help. It is very difficult. You know, a lot of folks don't feel as comfortable with math as they do reading, myself included. So there is definitely that incentive and that desire to help your student as much as possible, especially with math. There can be frustrations, they can get stuck, but really encourage them to use that help that's embedded in the program. And, you know, actually, it's best to hold off on help as much as possible. If they're continually getting problems wrong, that's okay, because that's helping to inform their math pathway. So the program really needs to know if a student is struggling with a particular concept, because then the program is going to be able to embed intervention and embed sort of prerequisite lessons that will help build them up to that maybe more difficult skill. So keep that in mind. Try to, as much as possible, hold off on the help, again, especially in math, to kind of let the program gauge where the student is and what the student needs. And then it will adapt to them and their skill level. And then we'll hop back in here in just a minute. We'll hop in live, but again, just want to sort of talk about imaginelearning.com at home. So there is a specific section for math where you're going to see some information about the program. And then you can hop in and get resources and ideas for supporting Imagine Math at home. And it also has access to those trackers and some videos to help you as well. This is just a deeper look into that area. So all kinds of excellent ideas and activities there, board games and some ideas to help you practice math, books about math, movies focused on math. So lots of resources available for you there. And then at this point, I want to hop in to the live version of that just a second to kind of walk around. And I also want to show you our help site, just so you're aware of those and sort of how they work. And then we will have some more time for questions. So let me leave our slide deck and open up. Kimberly, would you give me a thumbs up if you can see the website now? Thank you so much. All right, so this is Imagine Learning at Home. And again, if you scroll down, you're going to see resources for both literacy, math, and then just a fun section as well. So we do have a full YouTube channel of all kinds of different learning resources if your students need a little extra math or language and literacy fun. and then information on all of our help and support as well. So our help and support is not just designed for teachers or administrators. Our help and support is designed for our families too. So families can always reach directly out to our email, the chat. That's this button here at the bottom. You can actually chat live with a support representative and just choose that you're a parent. And then you can also call or text our support. So if you ever have any issues, especially those issues such as connectivity issues, if you have the program is freezing or glitching, we definitely recommend starting here and either, again, calling or texting or doing that live chat with our support representatives. They should be able to pretty quickly help you with any issues that you see there. And then as you scroll down, you also have specific product assistance for all of our products. So that is going to take you to our help center, and our help center is really fabulous. Actually, it's just help.imaginelearning.com. And you can either go into the specific product that you are wanting help with, or you can use the search. The search is actually pretty smart. Anytime I've ever searched anything in here, it has found exactly what I'm looking for. So if we wanted information on our students' pathway, there's all kinds of good information there that you can click into. And then there is the help for families button here as well that I want to highlight. So this is specifically for each of our products, information on using that product at home. So ideas, resources, and then again, support for you as you use that at home. All right, so I wanted to make sure I highlighted those for you to make sure that you have access if you ever need any help with the program. And so at this point, let me stop sharing, at least for the moment. So I know, again, that the big concern with both math and language and literacy, and especially math, because I know it is harder to track, is just that access to time spent in the program. And again, we do have trackers available for you, and I am going to send those to you after our call so that you have access to help your students track their time. We do really want to, focus on student responsibility and autonomy and making sure that they are able to track their own time, because as students get older and start having homework and more difficult just responsibilities that they have to track, we do truly believe that it is helpful to give them that opportunity at this young age to track their own learning. Again, though, I understand that there is a need for parents to have access to that as well. And we are aware of that. We are working on that. Things look very different now than they did a year ago. So we are working on that as diligently and quickly as possible to get you that access. But until then, I do want to make sure that you have opportunity and access to those trackers and things to help you to track that time. But are there any other questions that you all have about both math or language and literacy that I can answer for you? We've got about 15 minutes.
Yeah, Cheyenne, I have one.
Please.
If you said for the math one, it's very specific to make sure they push the pause, the map, the pause, and then the X on it.
Mm-hmm.
If they are not doing that, do they lose track of one, the answer they've already done and what level they're at, and two, the time? Does that mess up everything?
Yes. So if, for instance, I'll share my screen just as an example. So if a student is in Imagine Math and instead of doing that process, they just click the X at the top of the screen, right? Yes, they can lose progress. So it's very important to make sure that your students are using that process to make sure that all of their minutes are being counted and all of their lesson activity is being counted. If they do that in the middle of a lesson, then they could lose, the last answer, for instance, that they gave. So make sure that they are choosing pause, they go to the map and then pause and exit out. And then they can actually, of course, exit out of the browser that they were using, but it is really important for them to do that. great question, Kimberly.
Yeah, that was probably one of the biggest things we've been hearing,
Mhm.
at least at the PTA, is a lot of parents
Okay.
were saying that the math numbers were way different, but it seemed like the literacy one was fine when we got the report cards. And it was kind of
Mhm.
shocking to see 6 hours on literacy, but only 30 minutes on math, when they were pretty even when it came to our side and what we saw.
Sure. Yeah. So definitely make sure that they are using that process to leave Imagine Math so that it is counting their minutes accurately. That's really important.
And you said that also causes problems with like the problems they've already finished, and it won't advance them.
Yeah. So when they hop back in, they may have to answer the same questions again if they're not following that logout process.
Yeah, I think that
Correct.
was what my daughter is so good at math, and she has been
Mhm.
repeating a lot of the same problems over and over again.
I
And
see.
we were just getting frustrated, and she didn't want to do it anymore because every time she logged in, she was doing the same thing as what she was doing before.
Yes.
And that was probably the reason. I didn't understand. That was probably mostly my fault when I didn't understand that. And I just told her, well, if you're done for the 30 minutes or 20 minutes, log off. And she would probably
Sure.
just X out just like that. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if a lot of other people were doing the same thing, where they just log off. You're done. You're 20 minutes.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you bringing that up. And I'll make sure when I send you the recording to include that quick video that shows that process so that you can show that to your scholars as well and make sure you model that logging out for them. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. What other questions are there?
I do have a question, and I apologize because I had a phone call. I had to go back and watch this part of it. I'm glad that we're recording it. But
Yeah.
I kind of got on the last end of the trackers. What can you explain that again? What was you saying about the trackers where they're able to kind of track their? Well, my daughter does a timer, but what was you saying? Is it a tracker on the program that they can use? I'm sorry, could you kind of touch on
Yeah,
that?
let me actually pull it up and then I'll share my screen. But what it is it is not within the program. So again, we are working on embedding that into the program so that both you and your scholars can easily see that. But for now, and again, just to also to encourage student responsibility and autonomy, we do have these printable trackers that you can print out, and they're designed to, you know, be cute and enjoyable for the students. I'm pulling that up right now. Give me just a second. All right. Oh my goodness. I pulled that up as a PDF and my Adobe wanted me to update. Okay, now you should be able to see it. There we are. So we have this for both math and language and literacy. This is the math tracker that you can print out for your students. And again, we really want to focus on their lessons passed. So each time they pass a lesson, and we do encourage, if you can, to do home incentives and rewards as well. Those, you know, don't have to be anything that you give your scholars. Those can just be maybe some free time or different things like that. But so it's set up to where once they pass 5 lessons, you can write in a reward that they are working towards. So each time they get that reward, they can just kind of color in that lesson that they passed. And then there's also tracking those tokens as well. So remember, at the end of each lesson, they are going to see the number of tokens that they earned for that particular activity. So we encourage them to write down the week and then just circle or mark out how many tokens they collected for each activity so that they can track those tokens as well. And then as you scroll down, there's just more access to that. And then the last piece is vocabulary. So we encourage students also to use this to write down the new vocabulary words that they encounter in Imagine Math. Definitely, Imagine Math is very focused on that academic math language and utilizing the proper math vocabulary for all of the different things that we encounter in math. So instead of saying, I minused these numbers, I subtracted them and got the difference, things like that. So we encourage them to use this tracker to track the vocabulary terms that they are coming across as well. But this is a printable version. I've also sent your teachers at Rise STEM Academy a Google form version of this that your students can fill out. It's the same content. So it's going to ask them how many lessons they passed and how many tokens they got, and be able to do that in a Google form as well. Just to more easily, especially Kimberly, like you were saying, where there are some discrepancies, to make sure we monitor those and are aware of those if any issues are arising with the logging out. So that's another method. And the way that Google form works is it may be a little bit easier for your teachers to track minutes on there so that you can stay aware of those minutes. And then we do have one. I'm going to send that to you. Oh, sorry. We do have one.
Thank you so much for showing it again. I'm so sorry.
Of course, no problem. We do have one for language and literacy as well. And I'll be sure to send both of those along. They're very similar though. Thank you for your question.
Cheyenne, will you do me a favor and send me the Google form one?
Absolutely.
So I can send it out to the PTA. I'll send it out to everybody who's listed on our PTA list too. They can get it.
Well, actually, the form version needs to be done by the teacher first.
Oh, okay.
So they will need to sort of set up for them, but they'll need to make a copy of it that they can send the teachers the link, or send parents and families the link. So if I sent it to you, it wouldn't actually collect the data for the teacher, if that makes sense. It has to go to them first to collect that data. Can you still send me a
copy? We may be able
to. Yeah, I'll send you a copy. But just that particular copy, don't send that along to families because then it won't track for teachers. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
Of course. All right, we have a few more minutes. What other questions about Imagine Math and Imagine Language and Literacy do you all have?
Well, I got one more question. I've seen that it goes to 50 lessons. So once they get to 50 lessons, does it just go to the next? How does that work?
Yeah, great question. So each grade level is approximately 50 lessons. That's why it goes to 50 lessons there. You can absolutely print out another one, once that is done, but that's why there's 50 lessons there. So if a student did complete all of their grade level lessons, which I will say is rare, but it happens. If a student does complete all of their grade level lessons before the end of the school year is up, what Imagine Math will do first is it will start a mode called targeted review. So those lessons and activities where students did not earn all of their tokens, it's going to start going back through those lessons to make sure that students have mastery of all grade level standards. And then at that point, what will happen is the teacher will see an alert on their Imagine Math dashboard, and they can choose to move the student to the next grade level pathway if they wish to. So they'll be able to just take a look at the student progress and say, oh yeah, this student has mastery on all of those lessons. They're ready to go to the next grade level pathway. Great question.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, of course.
So how do you know when they've done lessons and when they've done the reading part?
I'm not sure what you mean by the reading part. I'm sorry.
Oh, because it says books and it says lessons and it says activities on the thing at the end of Imagine Learning.
Are we talking about language and literacy?
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Okay, I'm sorry. I must have misheard. Yeah, so for language and literacy, when each time they finish that 20 minutes, it is going to show them that logout screen that you're referring to. And so the goal is to track those lessons passed. So it will show how many lessons they did. So definitely carefully track those lessons. And then it's also just showing them how many books they have read so far. So a book, though.
That wasn't the question. You misunderstood me.
I'm sorry.
I'm saying, how do you know to make sure that they're actually getting books and they're getting the lessons? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think I was going to ask the same kind of question if I can jump in.
For example, I think I got to give an example so you understand what I'm saying. Like I noticed sometimes she'll get lessons and she'll get books, but then other times she won't get lessons and she won't get books. So how do we know the difference? That's what I'm saying.
So there shouldn't be a time when a student is not encountering any lessons. Now, sometimes they're working
Cheyenne,
on
if I
other
can,
content.
hey
Please.
Cheyenne, if I can jump in, I think the biggest thing is because they don't have access to that information, how are they able to see what their scholars are actually receiving
That's not what I asked.
passing? Is that what you
No,
mean, Ms. Whitfield?
no, ma'am. Okay, like I was saying, like, and Jessica has shown me this. Like there are times when Imagine Learning is off, it says like she'll have like one time she had like 7 activities, and then she didn't have any lessons, but she had like 4 books, and it was 19 minutes. But then she was on there for 26 minutes and she only had 3 activities, but then she didn't have nothing of the other 2.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah. So what happens? Books are part of the literacy strand. So language and literacy is focused on literacy, and then the language component is where they're getting targeted vocabulary lessons and grammar lessons. So sometimes when they're working in language and literacy, they're not actually encountering books to read. They're getting lessons that are just focused on grammar or just focused on vocabulary. So that's why one time when they log in, they may read 3 books, and the next time they don't read any books at all, because that time they were focused on vocabulary and grammar. And the program just tries to vary that so that they aren't working on one skill for too long, so that they don't get bored with grammar, right? Especially grammar, because grammar is probably no student's favorite. So after they've done a few grammar lessons, it's going to hop them back into a book to read. So
Okay,
really
so
that's...
Sorry. So that's the program. That's not necessarily what the scholar is doing. That is how the program is set up.
Yes. So the scholar, when they log in, they are going to automatically encounter one of those 3 options. So it's not about anything that they have chosen to do or not do. It's going to automatically, when they log in that day, give them one of those 3 lessons. They don't get the option to choose or anything. It's just varied based on their pathway and based on how much time they've spent. So it's automatically
I just want to
providing
make sure
them with those.
that, like you said, they have so many lessons to complete over the time. And I just want to make sure that, that is what is happening. But now that you've explained that it's not them picking, oh, I'm going to do lessons today, tomorrow I'm not going to do lessons. Yeah.
Understood. Yeah. So they are automatically encountering those just to vary what they're learning about. So no need to worry about that at all. All right. Thank you for that question. That was a really good question. I'm sorry it took me a minute to understand it, but that was a great question. All right, folks, it is 11:59. I'm happy to stay on if there are other questions. And again, I'm going to be sending you the recording of the call, as well as those tracking resources and information about the at-home site and the help site. But what else can I answer for you before we hop off?
I don't have any more questions, but I appreciate your times. I do have to go. I have another Zoom, but thank you all so much.
Absolutely.
I appreciate
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thanks.
And I definitely appreciate that breakdown because, when you have 2 scholars and you're trying to keep everything, you just want to make sure that, they're doing everything. And if there's something I need to help with, I want to make sure that I'm understanding, what I need to do as well. Because
Absolutely.
I do agree that, it's good for them to keep up with their own minutes. But, like you said, sometimes kids, they're not trying to be on that all the time. So if we're like kind of like the backup of this is when they did this is, and stuff like that. So I'm just very involved. And I just want to make sure that, whatever they're not doing or if they need help, I can have, more of an idea because I do try to let them do it by themselves where I'm not watching them the whole time. So I definitely want to make sure that if later I need to check it, I need to, so I can know what is all going on.
Absolutely.
I know I get tough, but it's my babies, and I just want to make sure that they're learning and they're getting it, and because you can do 30 lessons, but if you're not really retaining it, and really understanding it, then those lessons aren't really helping you if you're not really, getting it. So I just want to make sure as much as I can that I know what's going on, and if they do need help, then I can help them or let their teachers know, hey, they need help with this, or they need, So it's just very important for me to make sure that they're doing everything, and if there's something I need to do or something that needs to be brought to y'all attention, that is what's happening. So I just like to make sure.
Yeah, and thank you for advocating for your scholars. That's really important. And do know that each time, again, I know, I understand it's frustrating, but each time I hear that, I do report that to our product team, right? And I have a video right now, so I can even show them, that there is frustration, and I can say this needs to be prioritized. So I understand how important it is for you to advocate for your students, and I'll take that back to them.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yep,
and thank you for your time and your patience and understanding. I'm a mama bear. I can't help it. I need to make sure, as much as I can.
Yeah.
But I thank you for that.
Thank you.
You have a great day.
Thank you. You too. All right. I see we still have Krista on the call. Krista, did you have any questions that you wanted to make sure we addressed for you?
No, just thank you for that. It was great information. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, Cheyenne. I appreciate you coming in and giving a little more insight